Hello, thank you for your interest in Agile knowledge. My name is Nastasia Velasquez, and today we will be discussing very briefly Agile Facilitations. What are they? What can be a model to approach them? What are some main principles that guide Agile Facilitation? And finally, what can be some steps to lead our Agile Facilitation? So let's start by just having an overview. What can be Agile Facilitation? So at Growth Vikings, when we talk about Agile Facilitations, we are actually referring to the act of overcoming misunderstandings by achieving shared and actionable agreements. And when we define facilitations as the art of overcoming misunderstanding and achieving those shared and actionable agreements, we mean that every facilitation, especially the Agile facilitations that embrace diversity and are quite open, go through at least 3 zones. A first zone that is called the divergent zone, a middle zone that is called the growth zone, where there's a lot of a struggle usually, and finally a convergent zone that allows us to achieve agreements and understanding and actions ahead. Now, every Agile facilitation has 4 main values, or principles, better yet. The first one is full participation by all team members. The second one is mutual understanding. The third one is inclusive solution. And the fourth one is share responsibility. What each of these principles means, we will overview it in just minutes. Finally, it is important for us to understand that every Agile facilitation has at least 5 key stages. One stage in which we set the scene and we gather the information. That's usually that divergent zone. Another stage in which we generate insights and decide what to do. That's the phase in which we're kind of going through the growth zone, that struggling zone, and achieving some convergence. And a final stage that we call the close, and that's what finally we have arrived to a decision, to that final end of the convergence zone. So come with me and let's begin. First, we have some suggested readings here for you, okay, that kind of framed the content that we are going to overview. Those suggested readings are Agile Retrospective by Derby and Larson, Facilitators Guide to Participatory Decision Making by Kanner, as I mentioned before. Game Storming is another great book that's going to be part of the framework that we're using to talk about Agile facilitation. And finally, Coaching Agile Teams by Lisa Atkin is another key book that can help you in this arena. Let's begin then. The first thing to understand is that Agile facilitations, seen as a meeting, or better yet, as a gathering by the team members, have a shape. And we shouldn't forget this. What does this mean? It means that an Agile facilitation doesn't start at the moment of the facilitation. It actually starts with some pre-work. And that pre-work, it's very important because it allows the team members to learn what is it that they're going to be discussing, how they're going to be discussing, how the topic is going to be approached. Yes? With this, we mean that before the actual facilitation, as a meeting that has a starting and an end, the pre-work is part of that facilitation. Usually in that moment, we're setting the agenda, we're explaining to the team members what they need to overview, learn, or have prepared for that facilitation, what is expected, what are some things that we're going to cover. Yes, so that pre-work It's part of the Agile facilitation, and it is very important. Sometimes we don't do the pre-work. Hence, our team members arrive to the facilitation without a clear guidance, yes, or without clear expectations of what is it that they should achieve in the facilitation. And this makes it harder to move the team members from the divergence zone to that growth zone and that convergence zone that we want to help them move across. The second thing to know is that every facilitation has a warm-up moment. And that means that when we meet, we do a check-in with the team members, we establish those working agreements, what we're going to focus on, what we're going to focus off. That is the key soft landing into the facilitation that we call the warm-up. The third element in that shape of the facilitations is what we call the divergence zone, right? That's when each of the team members start with a discussion of the options of what they're thinking, what their opinions are, what are their judgments about a specific topic. Yeah, so that's another element within the shape that we can expect a facilitation goes through. Then, of course, we have what we call that growth zone, which usually is very full of, struggles and teams trying to understand each other. And finally, we will be moving then to what is the end or the end tail of the facilitation, which usually it has the convergence moment in which teams come to narrow their options. It has an evaluation or a conclusion phase in which they set with clarity what are going to be those next steps that they're going to take in the topic. And finally, and very important, we usually forget this, every facilitation, especially an Agile facilitation, has a test element. That means that we get to explore what was the impact of the solutions that we took, what happened with those decisions that we made. It has that element of testing if it worked or not. Hence, an Agile facilitation has a shape, okay? Besides that, Agile facilitations also have models in which we can approach it. In our discussion today, we're actually using the Canner model, which is the participation model. There are other models, we're not going to discuss them, but it's important for you to know that they exist. Today, we will stick to the participation model, yes? And basically, what this model proposes is that in an ideal situation, a facilitation has a pretty smooth process, yeah, in which through time, the diversity of ideas, after going through a divergent thinking moment, easily converge and achieve a solution, yes? That's the ideal process. That's the ideal facilitation. We have a topic, there's familiar opinions, there's diverse perspective, but then there's a consolidation of the thinking, a refinement of the thinking, and finally, a key decision point. Sadly, in reality, what we tend to have is this, the typical process, where usually the diversity of ideas throughout time, as we begin the discussion of the topic, diverge even more. That means we start sharing with each other familiar opinions, we bring diverse perspective, and we stay in diverse perspective, right? And this do not help us. As the facilitators, it's our responsibility to guide our teams to that growth zone and help them converge to take a decision. And that's precisely what we want to achieve with the Diamond participatory decision-making model of Canner, okay? As I mentioned before, it proposes that the diversity of ideas in time, after going through a divergent zone, go through a growth zone and go through a convergence zone. Our work as facilitators is to make sure that our teams don't stay in the divergence zone, that they achieve a landing in the growth zone, even if it's to struggle, and that they move from that struggle to the convergence zone in which they're going to be able to take decisions. Hence, as Agile facilitators, what we're seeking is move our teams from the phase of generating alternative, free-flowing of open discussion, gathering diverse points of views, and being suspended in judgment, to the convergent thinking zone, in which they are evaluating alternative, summarizing key points, sorting ideas into categories, and exercising judgment. Those are key indicators that our team will achieve a decision and has moved from divergence to convergence. Okay? Now, this is not an easy task. As I mentioned before, throughout the whole process, as Agile facilitators, we have some key principles that we want to make sure are respected by the team members. They align with our Agile principles. And those principles are basically, first, full participation. Okay? We want to make sure that all members are encouraged to speak what's on their mind. We don't want the shy person in the room not to have a voice if he or she wants to talk. Also, we want to make sure that there's mutual understanding throughout the whole facilitation process. And that means that we clearly point out to team members that each other needs and ideas are legitimate, and we must understand them. The third principle that should guide any Agile facilitation and that as facilitator we must encourage is inclusive solutions. And that means that we want to make sure that teams have solutions that integrates everyone's perspective and kind of needs. And this is very important. We want inclusive solutions. We don't want exhaustive solutions. That means that if teams, as they discuss, they decide to leave some perspective and needs on the side and focus on other, that is an inclusive solution, yes, even though it's not exhaustive. The final principle is shared responsibility, okay? This is a key characteristic of any Agile facilitation. Our team members will recognize that they have to implement the proposals that they endorse, all right? So those are some of the key principles that distinguish Agile facilitations, and that as Agile facilitators, we should be very focused on achieving. Yeah. So with this shape, with this model, the participatory model, with these principles, then it is key for us to understand as Agile facilitators, what is our role? And in this word cloud, we have a bit of some of the key skills that as Agile facilitators, we should be very clear that we're going to be exercising throughout the facilitation, okay? The first one is that we won't be only encouraging team members to arrive to the solutions, to move from that divergence to that convergence zone, but actually we will be very focused on listening, on observing what's going on, okay? On making sure that everyone acknowledge each other, respect each other. We're gonna be very focused on showing to team members what are the common grounds on the topic, okay? We're gonna be very focused on what are the feelings, what is the energy, what is the vibe that we're feeling that is coming across each of the team members. We're gonna be very focused in making sure that team members understand that each other needs and worries are legitimate, okay? We are going to be tracking, we are going to be gathering information, we're going to be sometimes summarizing, paraphrasing, mirroring. We're going to be sometimes empathizing with some of the things that the team members are putting forward. We're going to make sure that they have silent time if they need silent time. We're going to make sure that there's linking between the team members if necessary. We're going to make sure that we are bringing the different point of view into the room, yes? So as you see, as Agile Facilitator, there's a lot of things that you do while listening, okay? And this is important to remember because sometimes we can be too passive or too proactive. We need to find the right balance to move our teams from the divergence zone all the way to the convergence zone. So great, until now, then we've seen what Agile Facilitation can be, what's the shape of Agile Facilitation, what can be a model to approach Agile Facilitation, some of the principles and some of the skills. Let's go now to the tools, right, that we can have as Agile Facilitators. And in order to do that, let's start by facilitating the group discussions, yeah? Many times when we start facilitating the group discussions, we wonder how to best bring all the voices, yeah? There's so many things that team members want to say to each other. So we're going to overview right now some basic tools, and then I will show you very briefly 50 tools. I won't go in depth into them, but you'll have them available for you to overview and check them yourself. Hence, at this point, I will only focus in some tools, and then I will show you the rest for you to go through them on your own. All right? Perfect. So let's show you some tools to facilitate group discussion. The first one is the structured go around. So this consists on basically making sure that, each of the team members talk, and you can do this either by each of them throwing each other a ball, and as they grab the ball, they talk about it, by each of them showing a penny, and that person that has the penny gets to talk. So these are exercises that go around that allow you to integrate everyone, even the silent voices, or what we call the shy voices, the introverts, yes. Then you have the dialogue in pairs and a small group. This is another technique that can allow you to facilitate conversations, especially when your team members are in the divergence zone and you want to move them to the convergence zone. And it basically means that you break the group into small teams, into small pairs for them to overview the topic, and then you bring them together and you can either create other teams, or you can from the output generated in that first round of teams start exploring and clustering and then deciding. So that's another approach that you have to facilitate group discussions in teams that are pretty big. You have the fishbowl. And as a tool, it also allows you to facilitate discussion. Usually you will have 5 team members and they will rotate in one of the chairs, meaning that they start a topic, they discuss it, and then one of them will leave the chair and another person will hop in, and then another will go out and another will take that person's chair. And this rotation allows people that feel that they want to be heard or provide some input to the discussion to do it and also rotate each other. Usually the persons that are not in the chairs are observing and taking notes and thinking if they want to come in or at what point they want to come in. So it's a very nice process, right? Because it allows people to rotate, to discuss a topic, and to come into the discussion when they decide. Very nice. We have also individual grading is another great tool to kind of bring convergence into the room, and it usually is associated with brainstorming. Team members share post-its with their main ideas on a key topic, and this allows them to kind of see what themes, what clusters emerge, and from then on explore one of these clusters or themes further and take decisions. The other 3 tools that we have to actually help our teams achieve convergence are, for example, trade shows, World Cafe, and Open Technology Show. Let's see what each of them are. Trey showed it's very interesting because it allows teams to present a demo of a solution on a topic and for the rest of their team members to review it, right? And basically it means given a topic, as they come to the facilitation, team members bring the demo of a solution, and that demo can be, proposed strategies, proposed steps, proposed process, proposed ideas, and they show it, they present it, they explain it, and then the rest of their team members review it, and they move to the next team with the rest of the ideas on that process, on that project, on that strategy, and those steps, and review it. And from each review, something emerge for them to decide, and as a team move forward. Yeah, so it's very nice because it implies that team members have to prepare before the facilitation, come to the facilitation with a demo, and that demo is reviewed by each of the team members, right? We have then what is called the World Cafe, very lovely tool for teams to actually dig deep into a topic and share ideas. And it basically consists on teams being break into tables, yes. And in each of these tables, they discuss the topic, they put forward ideas of how to solve X or Y problem or how to generate X or Y innovation. And after a certain time, they move from their table to another table. The key thing is that the team always leave one team member as the host and the rest move. And this team member that is the host receive the other team that comes to the table and share with them the key insights that he gather or she gather with the other team members and build upon that and review that. So an example is we have 5 team members in a table, they discuss a topic, then 4 of them move to the other table, 1 of them stayed and received other 4 people that come into the table, and with that people, he overviewed the key ideas that he had with the other team members, and he refined the ideas to generate a solution for a specific topic with the new people. At the end, what we have is different tablecloths full of ideas that have been refined and iterated, and in which the whole team members are able to find themes and cluster and make great decisions. It's an amazing tool, really recommend it. You will have it available in the link to this video for you to click around and learn more about it. The next one is the Open Technology Show, very useful for big teams that want to explore different areas of a topic, okay? And that means like there's a big problem and this problem has different topics. So teams generate an agenda with these different topics, and then they divide themselves according to the topic, and in parallel, they discuss, yes, approaches to each of these topic areas, solutions. They even take note, and then they come together and they come to a conclusion. It is very nice because it allows people to provide input to the area of the problem in which they're better suited to provide knowledge and solutions and input. So a great example is, imagine we're doing a product launch and we're having issues on how we will enter that market to launch that product, and we want to discuss the commercial strategy, but also kind of like the partnership strategy and also the operative strategy, and we want to talk a little bit about the product itself. So then the team members divide themselves according to this topic, go and discuss, what they can do to launch the product in another market from a commercial point of view, from an operative point of view, etc. And those best suited according to the areas go to it, and in parallel, they do some brainstorming, they provide some ideas to it, and then when we come together, everyone shares those key insights, and we arrive to a holistic solution to that launch of the product. amazing the idea of open technology show and very close to the Agile community. You will have it also here available for you to click and learn more about it. So let's move to other set of tools, and are those tools that generate insights. These are tools that we usually use in that ground zone to move the teams to the convergence zone. And it's the 5 whys, pretty well known, but very useful always. Clustering, as mentioned before, it allows teams to identify themes and generate those clusters. Current reality tree, also very, very useful because it allows to identify what are the undesirable effects associated to a core problem. This is pretty useful, especially with teams that haven't nailed down an issue and we want them to understand the impact that it can have if they don't arrive to a solution. So the current tree reality really generates some sense of urgency to the problem resolution and some convergence through this, because it does point out all the undesirable effects that can be associated to a core problem. So pretty useful if you want to create some sense of urgency in your teams, really. Then we have the Ichikawa diagram. Pretty good technique also to move our teams to the convergence zone, especially our technical teams, because it allows us to associate what are some of the causes generating the problem and what is generating those causes too. Yeah, so it goes pretty in depth, very useful. The final instrument that we're going to talk about in this case is the force field analysis. Okay, it allows to generate insights also. It puts the issue being analyzed in the middle, yes, and then it allows us to see what are some factors that are driving any solution to that issue and what are some factors that are limiting solutions to that issue. So it allows us to identify factors generating that specific problem. Yeah. Now, as we move from the generation of ideas, usually what we want is convergence on decision. And to decide, it comes to be pretty useful sometimes dot vote, yeah? Or also like the typical hands gestures, right? Which means yes, I agree, no, I don't agree, yeah, yes, maybe I agree. But also that can mean in terms of consensus, I don't understand, I need to go over it again, I think I got it, but I'm not completely comfortable, I got it, and yes, I can explain it to someone else. So these are mechanisms that we can use to generate consensus on, like, we did understand the problem, we did agree in the problem, or we gave the problem this priority given this dot vote. So dot vote and hand gestures, either to say that we agree or to say that we understand or didn't understand an idea, are pretty useful. Yeah. So to conclude in this area of basic tools, we have also observation, okay? And believe it or not, this is a very powerful tool for facilitators, and it reminds us that as Agile facilitators, we gotta be present in the session. Yes, so it is a bad indication if you're Agile facilitator, you're in your phone, because observation is gonna allow you to know, okay, maybe what's the quality of the ideas that are popping up in the session, if the team is moving towards simple ideas, things that they can do, if the team is getting tired, what's the energy of the team, if the team is avoiding something, if the team is not respecting each other. So observation, it's a key tool for you as an Agile facilitator. Also, another type of tools that you have, or direct intervention, is powerful questions, okay? They allow you to move the team from a state within that diamond that we talked about to the convergence zone, right? So some typical scenarios, you have them pointed out here, okay? And what can be some possible questions too, yeah? So hopefully this gave you some basic tools to how to facilitate group discussions, how to generate insights, okay, how to do some interventions as you are trying to move your teams from the divergence zone into the growth zone and into that amazing convergence zone that we want to take them. Yeah, that happy zone as we have here. Yeah. Now, obviously, I just gave you some tools. You have here 50 facilitation techniques available that you can access them through the link associated to this video. As you can see, you have some basic games for you to do with your teams. You have some activities associated to setting the stage, okay? You have also some activities to gather information, okay? And you have more activities to generate insights. Some of them we discussed, like the 5 why, the Ichikawa or fishbone. You have also some activities to decide what to do. So you can see here, for example, the SMART goals, the 100-pound test, or the tribes, or the maximize follow-through technique, yeah? And finally, you have some activities to close the facilitation, yeah? For example, appreciations, or the return on time invested, or the plus delta, yeah? So as you see, there's many tools for us to facilitate. I would like to close up just by pointing out that facilitation does have a structure, as I mentioned, okay? And here you have available a template that maybe can be useful for you. As you see, this template allows you as facilitator to be organized as you approach your Agile facilitation. It helps you be clear on the current state, on the desired state or outcome, on the total time box, and on what activities you will be using to set the scene, to gather data, to generate insights, to decide what to do, and to close. Yes? Also, it gives you some space to plan your interventions. What am I going to be observing? What powerful questions am I going to do? What it's important for me to ask to move my team from the divergence zone all the way to the convergence zone so they don't stay either in that ground zone or in that divergence zone. Yeah. So there you go. This is a little bit about Agile facilitation. As you see, Agile facilitations are a structured process. As we mentioned before, they are, as a matter of fact, the act of overcoming misunderstanding and achieving a shared and actionable set of agreements. As you saw, it has a model, okay? It has a shape, it has some principles, and it has some steps, which you can, of course, fill with different tools in order to help your team. That's it. I hope you enjoy it. Goodbye.